So after a hot start in the beginning of that game, Baker and Tampa Bay could not keep up with Lamar and the Ravens. They were humming and firing on all cylinders. Lamar is now the number one in MVP odds by a sizable margin after another mediocre performance from your guy Mahomes. You said it would be hard for Lamar to win another MVP due to voter fatigue. But who else would they give it to besides Lamar right now?
Well, right now, Lamar's running away with it. And we're in a really... So this is going to be the story of today, which is, I kind of have a theory that I'm going to end up being sports Twitter's main character today. And you never want to be the main character on Twitter, but sometimes you accidentally do it. Sometimes you know it's going to happen. And sometimes you feel like you have an obligation to do it, which is, I'm going to be the only person to remember what everyone said 8 months ago. Every single person who covers sports. Which was, we're done giving Lamar MVPs until he doesn't fall apart in the playoffs. That was the absolute consensus accepted opinion in January. And now we're 7 games into the year and Lamar's looking like he's going to win MVP, which, by the way, I'm actually fine with. I don't actually care about the NFL MVP the way I care about the NBA MVP. I think one has much more historical resonance than the other. But what I am not going to allow for is everyone to pretend we have not been here before. And I saw, I'm going to do this on the show, and, this in theory should give Kevin Wildes a head start to think of a rebuttal, but Kevin Wildes doesn't watch the podcast. I saw a Kevin Wildes tweet yesterday that is a great one, but the only problem is it word for word applied to last year from the Ravens' perspective. Lamar is the MVP and playing better than ever. Patrick Mahomes is playing the worst football of his life. If Lamar can't make the Super Bowl this year, it will literally never happen. This is literally what everyone was saying at the end of last season. And last season, by the way, it's Mahomes was playing worse than he is now, and the Chiefs were losing. Nick, Lamar didn't have a game like last year, 280 yards, 5 touchdowns, a 158 rating. Hey, Siri, what was the final game of Lamar Jackson's season last year? 320 yards, 5 touchdowns, a 158 rating. The exact thing he did yesterday, as many touchdowns as incompletions, more than 10 yards per attempt. Guys, we've been here before. Now, I can hold
Derrick
multiple
Henry.
thoughts in my head at one time. What'd you say? Go ahead.
It's a new year. We've been here before, but I think this team is a little bit more complete. No, the defense isn't great, but Derrick Henry's there. And I think
Henry is there. But the
100%.
defense is far worse. Last year, so I'm going to push back on you on this now. By the way, here's going to be the downside to you being America's sharpest football bettor. No more kid gloves on some of these football arguments. If you're going to beat me in picks, I'm going to have to beat you in some of these arguments. You can't say they're a more complete team. You can say they're a scarier offense, but last year they had the best defense in football to go along with this offense. This year, the offense is even better, but the defense is, as of this moment, not nearly the caliber it was last year. So again, I want to make this clear. I'm fine with Lamar winning MVP. I'm also fine with having a real discussion of where does Lamar Jackson rank on the all-time regular season quarterbacks list? Because his winning percentage is unbelievable. His numbers, the numbers are weird because he's never thrown for 4,000 yards, and he's only thrown for 3,500 yards once. But his passer rating is great. His efficiency is great. His yards per attempt is great. His touchdown interception ratio is great. And obviously, he adds this amazing running threat. But, and this is what is going to make me sadly the main character of sports Twitter today, none of this gives me faith that he will be anything like this in the playoffs. And if you want to say, then why play the games? What's the point? It's totally fair response. And my answer is, and again, I feel like a jerk, and the listeners and viewers might be saying it's because you're being a jerk. I want to make this clear. He has been sensational this year. I think he has been dramatically better than he was last year. Last year, I thought I didn't care that he won MVP, but I didn't love that it was, to me, it was like, okay, the Ravens are the best team, so I guess it's got to go to their quarterback. Like, I didn't love it, but I didn't really care because there wasn't anybody else that took a stranglehold of it. Dak didn't. Purdy fell apart at the end. I liked Christian McCaffrey, but he is a running back. Like, there's a lot of, so it was fine. This year, the last 5 weeks in particular, he is playing close to perfect football. In fact, what are Lamar's numbers the last 5 weeks? So I'm going to tell it to you real quick. Last 5 weeks, Lamar Jackson, he's got to be completing over 70% of his passes, and his rating's got to be in the 130s. So I'm going to pop it up right now. And he's probably averaging 200, I'm just talking about passing, 250 yards a game. So the damn Football Reference won't let me do it in quickly. But he has 13 touchdowns, 1 pick, got to be a rating in the 130s, over 230 yards a game passing, and everything he's doing on the ground. He's playing as well as you can play over the last 5 weeks, and last night, he was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, here's the numbers over the last 5 weeks. I got it finally. 258 passing yards a game, 13 touchdowns, 1 pick, a 137 rating, 72% completions, and has added 60 or 57 yards a game rushing and 2 touchdowns. So a total of 305 total yards per game, 72% completions, 10.5 yards per attempt, 5.5 yards per rush, 15 total touchdowns, 1 interception, and 3 fumbles lost. So nobody can question how good he's been. Everyone has not only a right, I would argue, if you're going to be consistent with how we talk about athletes, has an obligation to be highly skeptical that he will be anything like this in the playoffs. And if you want to say no, it's fair to do that to James Harden and Joel Embiid, 2 first-ballot Hall of Famers, 2 league MVPs, 2 all-time regular season guys, but unfair to do it to Lamar Jackson, I just disagree with you. And he's not the same caliber of player, but if you want to be like, well, basketball is different than football, fine. Everyone does this exact math to Dak Prescott. Everyone. And last year, who came in second in MVP to Lamar? Dak Prescott. So, and Dak's not having a great year, so it doesn't apply this year. But I'm saying, if Dak right now had these numbers, DeMonze, let me ask, if he had these numbers and was looking like league MVP, do you think the second clause of the conversation would be, but we got to see him do it in the playoffs? Or just be like, man, time to give this man his flowers.
No, 1,000%. Dak gets that same rap, but I do think people would be easier handed off to Dak Prescott getting it. But yeah, no, 1,000%.
So do you listen? Right now the MVP odds, Lamar is a big favorite. He's plus 225, and the reason he's a big favorite is not only because he's been brilliant, but because the guys in second and third are having really odd years. Mahomes makes all these clutch plays And the teams played the hardest schedule, and they're undefeated, but his numbers are awful. Josh Allen has totally stopped turning the ball over. Just doesn't do it after it being a huge problem last year or throughout his career. But 3 of his games this year, or 2 of his games, pardon me, have been 2 of the worst games of his career. So, you know what I mean? He's in a weird spot. And then there's your guy, Jared Goff, who has a real case to be made because he's been just as hot as Lamar since the first 2 weeks of the year. Both those guys have been brilliant since the opening 2 weeks of the year.
Lamar also started off 0-2. It was looking grim. I mean, one of those losses was to the Raiders and 5 straight.
Yeah, to the Raiders when they were up 10 points in the fourth quarter. So I do want
talk about
to
the Bucks,
say
the Bucks side of it.
We'll do the Bucks
sorry.
in 1 second. I want to say one thing about Baltimore, the team. And I said this for the year, and a classic one, sorry to say it, instantly correct. It was totally unfair for the NFL to make the AFC Championship game rematch week 1. Because, as I said then, and is being proven out now, if they put Baltimore in a position where if they lose that game, there is nothing they can do the rest of the regular season to feel fully confident going into this postseason. And now what you've seen is they lost that game. There was a bit of a hangover effect. They lose the next game. Since then, they've been brilliant. But if we are being honest, there is this cloud looming over them, which is the Chiefs. I think it would have been better for the league and for them if that was a later season matchup. Now, for them, it would have been way better because the Chiefs are so banged up and because in that first game, they didn't seem to be fully invested yet in Derrick Henry, or the Chiefs just have the best run defense in the NFL, which they, of course, do. But it's just a weird but going on with Baltimore this year. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to get more from the show and make sure to click the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just click the link in the description below.